Scott, thank you so much for making it over to Portugal for Global Think Tank. The presentation was amazing. It was a really great, it's an optimist view of AI, obviously. I wanted to ask you a few follow-up questions on the session itself. First of all, it was really about what role do you think AI agents can take on in terms of online shopping and for shoppers themselves? Curation is like a big aspect of that. And you gave the example, I think, of checking out places in Portugal before you arrived, of where you could stay and things you could do. What role do you think those LLMs can play in that curation? And is that something that you think they're going to take over from human recommendations and referrals for shoppers?
I mean, you already have, golden buy box on Amazon. You have recommendations and user reviews. There's a human element that's scaled with technology. So user reviews are really powerful. And then we were talking about this off mic. When I get a recommendation from AI, I oftentimes confirm it with a human.
Yeah.
I'll go online and see the reviews on TripAdvisor of whatever's being recommended. I'll ask a person, if I know someone who's familiar, what do you think of this place? So yeah, there usually does need to be some sort of human touch or influence, at least at my age, to confirm or cement the purchase.
Yeah.
But increasingly, that human touch can be scaled. So there's a need for fewer of them. But I have a friend who has a very high-end travel agency, and her business is booming because essentially very wealthy people still want a human to figure stuff out for them.
Yeah.
And want someone who they trust and that they can call and that get that nuance, if you will, of problem solving.
I think that's kind of something where affiliate marketing can continue to still play a role in this new era, as it were. There's a lot of content creators, influencers that people increasingly trust to provide that guidance. You've got so much abundant choice, obviously. I do wonder, though, from those professionals' perspectives, what do you think is going to be the economic incentive for them to continue to create content constantly?
Yeah.
That obviously feeds these agents and these AI kind of platforms.
It's a really good question. What are the incentives? Because what you're seeing now is even a lot of AI initiatives in the enterprise aren't getting traction because people aren't dying to sharpen the sword of their executioner. If you look at, for example, YouTube has increased the percentage of revenue they've given to content creators. They've realized that they've got to create incentives around content creators. So I think the platforms aren't dumb. The problem is that the kind of content they incent isn't value-add content. It's content that is, kind of buckshot, just gets huge views. So is there a market for subscription-based content that is much more premium, much more fact-checked, much more thoughtful? I think there is, but look, at the end of the day, the interface that controls the custody of the consumer is going to get an unfair, disproportionate amount of the margin.
Yeah.
So essentially, the biggest toll booths in history are Meta, Google, and Amazon, and they figure out ways each year to take more and more. Usually what you have is an emerging technology like an OpenAI. They're very generous with the content creators. They aggregate them. And then they slowly but surely start to squeeze out the margin. So I would argue that a key to keeping in place incentives right now would be for the content creators or the media companies to form a coalition to speak as one voice against these LLMs and, quite frankly, demand that they take down or not crawl their content. So if you ask questions, if you say in the voice of Scott Galloway, AI has crawled all of my books.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's illegal. But unless we bind together, all of us, and speak with one voice and attempt to shut them down. I mean, the moment was 20 years ago for us to stop Google from crawling all of our data.
You kind of feel like the horse is bolted a little bit.
Well, not yet in AI. It's already bolted in search because now you have to be discoverable on search, and there's one search engine that controls 90%, and then there's hundreds of thousands of content creators. So there's an asymmetry of power. There's still time with AI for the big media companies to coalesce together and say, we're speaking with one voice, and anyone who crawls our content without our permission gets sued. I think that's the only way you're going to extract enough margin out of it such that it's like the cable guys. What they do is they create just enough incentive for the content creators to make a living, but they're always going to take the disproportionate amount of the margin.
So we need a creators union.
We need to there's strength in numbers. Yeah. The biggest media companies in the world should have one voice speaking to AI right now, and they don't.
One final question before you go, because I know you're heading off shortly, but if traditional brand is becoming less relevant in this world that's driven by maybe more performance-based marketing and algorithms, do you think that AI is going to accelerate that decline, or will strong brands still hold sway in a place or an age of machine-driven like optimization?
brands obviously still matter a lot. They're just being built differently. But
Yeah.
when people think of traditional branding, it was come up with a visual identity, come up with a core values of brand identity, and then pump out a bunch of traditional media across broadcast channels that were very efficient, which is Latin for cheap.
Mhm.
You know, the majority of America was watching one of 3 channels, 5 to 7 hours a day in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Now it's so fragmented that just the cost to build a brand that way is almost cost prohibitive or wildly inefficient. And now, if you think about the best brands that have been built over the last 20 or 30 years, whether it's a Google, a Netflix, an Amazon, it's really been more about supply chain.
Yeah.
And that is a massive investment in getting you everything you need within 48 hours for free. That probably built the best retail brand in history. That's Amazon. That's the supply chain story. Netflix is shipping out DVDs via mail and then figures out a way to use broadband to deliver video, no commercials, accesses cheaper capital, invests $18 billion in content creation. That's a supply chain story. So it used to be, I'd get together at these conferences 20 years ago and we talk about how a great ad campaign can shift the trajectory of a company. The model of trying to come up with a big idea and then take 8 to 12% of me, I mean, that's just over. The good agencies are adapting and becoming more like trusted advisors around a client's biggest problems, whether it's supply chain, whether it's AI, whether it's affiliate marketing. But I do think media planning and trying to figure out the best place for the best bang of the buck and getting more into direct response and finding the right person at the right time. I mean, it's that whole thing where I know 50% of my advertising is wasted, I just don't know which 50%. Well, now we know. And so that spend's gone down, but it's just being, it's not true. It isn't going down, it's just being spent elsewhere.
Yeah.
You know,
Reallocated.
in some, if like AI or digital or some sort of targeting isn't, I would not, if I were under the age of 40, want to go into ad-supported media right now unless you're with what is effectively identified as a monopoly.
Yeah. I am 41, so I maybe
There you
need to
go.
make that decision.
So you made it.
Yeah.
You got to the other side. At this point, just ride it out.